Boston. The mid-1990s. The city was already haunted by a chilling past. Decades after the original Boston Strangler, a terrifying new pattern of attacks emerged. A series of brutal, unsolved murders began to plague the quiet suburbs. The victims were all targeted in their homes, violently attacked, and left for dead. The first fatal encounter left behind little immediate physical evidence for detectives. Police quickly recognized a disturbing pattern, fearing a copycat killer was at work. The initial investigation was meticulous, but the technology of the era proved insufficient. A single, microscopic trace of DNA was collected, a fragile clue held in cold storage. The case went ice cold. Decades passed with no arrests, only questions and frustration. But the advent of genetic genealogy would soon turn the tide of this impossible case. The case depended on one piece of evidence: the decades-old DNA sample preserved in cold storage. The original technology of the 90s could only yield a limited, unmatchable profile. But modern science could extract a full forensic profile from the minute trace evidence. This full forensic profile was then uploaded to public consumer genealogy databases. Genetic genealogy searches for distant relatives who unknowingly share the killer's DNA. A breakthrough was found, a match to a third cousin in the greater Boston area. Detectives then worked backward, manually building out the family tree from the common ancestors. The goal was simple: to narrow the massive family tree down to a single person of interest. That suspect was identified as 67-year-old Ronald G, living quietly in the suburbs. Investigators immediately launched covert surveillance, needing one final piece of evidence. A discarded item containing his DNA was legally collected from the suspect's trash. The final lab test began, comparing the cold case DNA to Ronald G's new sample. The result was undeniable. The 30-year mystery was finally resolved. Ronald G was arrested without incident and charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder. The arrest brought stunning relief and closure to the city, haunted by the Strangler Copycat. The resolution brought closure, but it reopened the profound pain of the victims' families. The killer's pattern was chillingly calculated, designed to invoke fear and confuse investigators. What? Over a 5-year period, the killer struck 3 times in 3 different suburbs. He deliberately mimicked the original Strangler's methods to mislead the police. Each victim left behind a devastated family, struggling with the senselessness and brutality of the crime. The initial investigation relied heavily on shaky eyewitness testimony and behavioral analysis. Behavioral profiling proved inaccurate, leading the investigation down multiple frustrating dead ends. For decades, the sheer volume of paper evidence overwhelmed the limited resources of the cold case unit. The only constant thread was the trace evidence, carefully stored away as technology advanced. For 30 years, justice remained suspended, an impossible weight on the community's conscience. While investigators struggled, The killer lived a quiet, unassuming life in plain sight.
The contrast was stark. Mundane reality versus the furious, silent pursuit of science.
The suburban peace was shattered when the police finally moved in and made the arrest. The ordinary face of the monster was finally revealed, elderly, unassuming, and cold. The long wait is over. The killer is scheduled for arraignment tomorrow morning. The long road to trial begins now, seeking final justice for the victims of the copycat killer. Title 4. Chapter 4. The Genetic Crackdown. The use of genealogy has created profound ethical and legal divisions in the U.S. The key debate. Many argue that searching consumer DNA databases violates the privacy of millions of innocent relatives. Law enforcement now has access to the most intimate genetic data of over 30 million people. Innocent users never explicitly consented to having their DNA used for criminal investigations. Legal scrutiny now surrounds the consent forms used by these private genealogy companies. But the technology's effectiveness in solving decades-old cold cases is absolutely undeniable. Investigators are rapidly developing new, standardized protocols for handling genetic evidence. The process has brought justice and certainty where there was only doubt and investigative failure. The upcoming trial will set a major legal precedent on whether genetic genealogy is admissible as primary evidence. The new methods are sparking massive international collaboration on thousands of unsolved mysteries. For families who suffered for decades, the technology offers the only real chance at finally achieving peace.
This new digital chain of custody is closing the book on cases that were deemed impossible.
However, vigilance is crucial to ensure that this powerful tool is not misused or abused by authorities. The outcome is clear. The age of the truly untraceable killer is officially over. The future of justice relies on science, but it must be applied with ethical and moral precision. The cold case unit succeeded where the original detectives failed, bridging a 30-year gap through forensic science. The successful prosecution is a victory for technology, offering final answers to the victims' families. The resolution of this case proves that no killer can truly hide from the evidence contained within their own biology. This opens the door for thousands of other cold cases across the country to finally be re-examined. Ronald G. now faces the full legal consequences for the terror he inflicted on the city decades ago. The question remains, do the ends justify the means when it comes to genetic privacy? This is AI Crime Watch. Subscribe for the latest developments in crime intelligence and forensic science.